Their loved ones make the ultimate sacrifice, but some military families are living in disgusting and even dangerous conditions. Good evening, I'm Leslie Foster. One of the things we try to do on the news at 11 is amplify voices in our community. And some military families are dealing with mold and dead rats and busted pipes, and that is unacceptable. Everyone should feel safe in their own homes. Tonight, our reporting reveals the people who oversee all this knew about the problems. Investigative reporter Laura Geller has been leading the way on this story. She has the next part of a WUSA 9 original series, Dangers at Home.
We shouldn't be here at all. When the Department of Defense enters into contracts with private housing companies to provide quality housing, that's what military members deserve.
We've shown you the pictures. This photo is from Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. This one is from Quantico. Example after example of conditions no one should have to live in, especially those who are making some of the biggest sacrifices for us.
You don't feel that you should worry about your health at home.
As Marine wife Heidi Starr looks at these photos and talks about her family's time living in privatized military housing on Quantico, the tears start to flow. Cleanup of a busted pipe in their home revealed a much larger issue.
That's when I first saw what was the alarming amount of black mold.
99% of military housing is now run by private companies, companies which have faced backlash. Military families became so fed up they went to Congress. They detailed dangerous and sickening conditions inside their base housing.
Without the diligence of military families raising their voices on behalf of others, we might still be uninformed about these troubling problems.
But here's the thing, those military families didn't need to speak out. Our investigation uncovered Congress, DoD, and the military service branches all already knew there were problems. This is a statement from the National Military Family Association. It was given to a U.S. House committee. The organization voiced concerns about the 50-year contracts given to private companies to run military housing. They asked, who provides oversight of housing management and maintenance? Who is the advocate for family members living in the housing? They warned Congress families could be caught in the middle of the private companies and the services, leaving them with the residual mess. That testimony was given on Capitol Hill, March 29th, 2001, almost 20 years ago. It wasn't only on Congress's radar. These are reports from the Department of Defense's own Inspector General. Between 2013 and 2016, it issued 6 reports on housing issues. This report from 2015 looked specifically at bases in our area. Inspectors noted hundreds of deficiencies. At Fort Belvoir, they reported deteriorated lead paint. On DC's Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, they said uncontrolled moisture was a potential source for future mold growth. In the bases they examined across the world, they saw thousands of problems and wrote, the pervasiveness of electrical system safety, fire protection, and environmental health and safety deficiencies was the most significant trend that we observed. The issue came back to Congress again just last year. Its own watchdog examined the finances of the privatized housing projects. It found DoD has not consistently looked into the ability to maintain the housing for the future. We come full circle with another statement from the National Military Family Association. This one in February. They reminded lawmakers of their earlier warnings, writing, "It saddens and angers us to have to say, we told you so." After almost 20 years, families are still looking for the answers. Maryland Congressman Anthony Brown sits on the House Armed Services Committee. He also served in the Army for 30 years.
Do you think these companies are going to be motivated by these congressional hearings, or do you think these contracts need another look?
I think the contracts need another look. I think Congress needs to continue its oversight.
Another hearing on Capitol Hill is expected in the coming weeks. In the meantime, we've learned military officials are meeting with company executives. They went over a new proposed tenant bill of rights. Residents in base housing should get a look at it soon. They tell WUSA 9 they are hoping for accountability. That can be complicated when residents come and go every 2 to 3 years.
Well, what you? Yeah. Max, where's the tooth?
Back at the Stars' new home on Bowling, Heidi is thinking about the future. She knows, like all military families do, another move is not far off.
Do we stay put as best we can, or do we look at moving somewhere else? I mean, and then risk the chance of another mold-riddled home.
A House Armed Services subcommittee just met to go over how it wants to spend billions of dollars for the nation's military. The first item on its press release, proposals to address problems with the management and oversight of military family housing. They include requirements about that Bill of Rights, hiring civilians to better staff housing offices, and developing tools to measure some of the hazards in these homes. Laura Geller, WUSA 9.